Dobrý den vám všem, já jsem Lee Bidgood a mluvím dnes v Johnson City v Tennessee a jsem rád, že můžu být s vámi i virtuálně. What happens when we change the lyrics of a song? Retexting, my term for the creation of a new text for an existing song, is a common transformation, but our understanding of the value of these changes needs refinement. This presentation first examines practices of retexting within the context of bluegrass music in the Czech Republic, proposing that Czech bluegrass retexting is not merely derivative but creates new meanings and meaningful works. My observations lead me to reflect on how practices of retexting can be useful tools for pedagogy and other sorts of community engagement. My awareness of retexting started early, learning the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and then realizing that Ba Ba Black Sheep, Have You Any Wool, and many other songs simply recycle this same tune. In elementary school, I heard parodies of Christmas songs, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Laid an Egg, that used retexting to make fun. Studying American musical history as an undergraduate, I learned of Christian congregational singing, in which a handful of tunes can be used to sing all the psalms. Here, song and tune are interchangeable parts in a technology that supports musical life in a community in a situation of scarce resources. The continued traditions of interchanging text and tune by primitive Baptists in the Appalachian South has led to additional distinctive practices and sounds that we hear in folk Baptist singing. As a graduate student doing fieldwork, I observed the ways that Czech bluegrassers retext songs. Some retexted songs preserve the meaning, covering the song through translation. Other Czech bluegrass texts use the melody of an existing song but carry an entirely different meaning. Pop music scholarship on covers provides a model for thinking of this range of approaches. David Horn discusses how covering of a song is different from freer interpretation of a song, and Dina Weinstein distinguishes covers which use a certain performance or recording as a reference from versions, where differing versions of the song exist equitably as varying possibilities for performance. Some retextings show an intent to connect Czech bluegrass to American bluegrass, while others seem less conscious about the connection to another version and seek to establish something new and perhaps equal to American bluegrass. Musicologist Robert Falk provides historical context with his etymology of the terms parody and contrafactum. For 16th century writers, parody meant, quote, songs sung in imitation of others, or a song sung to another melody, or to introduce in place of a serious thing, another ridiculous one. In the 1700s, Jean-Jacques Rousseau contrasted, quote, well-made music, where the melody is composed to the words, with parody in which, quote, the words are composed to the melody. In the 19th century, parody became primarily a literary term, and from that point on, contrafactum was more popular for discussing musical cases. Falk concludes by discussing Ursula Ardberg's mid-1900s definition of contrafact that, unlike Rousseau's, is more rhetorically neutral. The invention of new texts to given forms and melodies. Falk comments that Ardberg's notion of contrafactum becomes virtually indistinguishable from the process of song composition itself. As I explore this topic, I'm inclined to follow Ardberg's example in seeking neutral language. For example, I resist using the word original to describe the English language text of an American song that has been recreated through retexting in Czech. I hold with Alexander Dent that while retexting creates a work that is in some way derivative, it also creates a new work that is fully enmeshed and effective in its own contexts. Per Richard Peterson's discussion of the fabrication of authenticity in country music, retextings might be seen as less authentic using the real, not imitative definition, but could be considered as authentic using the definition of relevant in current context. Accordingly, my ethnomusicological consideration of Czech bluegrass, retexting, pays attention to the local contexts of people who create and use these recordings. Bluegrass musician and community leader Petr Brandeis has considered Czech translations of bluegrass lyrics, analyzing rhythm, vowels, and how translators modify what he calls natural language. More relevant here, he provides an insider's views on bluegrass retexting, including an outline of the different approaches a Czech lyricist can take and the challenges and opportunities they face. As Brandeis puts it, quote, "A lyricist who tries to translate a song from English to Czech should obviously consider not only the phonetical and rhythmical side of the text, but also the meaning and overall message." Brandeis addresses how retexting focus on sound and phonetics. It's one major point he looks at. Rovno tady rovno, which is Jan Vyčital's Czech version, 1969, 1970 it came out, of the bluegrass standard Roll On, Buddy, Roll On. And this example indicates how Czechs have recreated the sounds of sung English. Here the English text is at the top, with Czech phonetic text below, revealing a strategic use of the O vowel and the resonance of tady and buddy. I'll add another example here. I've heard of a Czech bluegrass piece that takes its melody from a U.S. song, Honey You Don't Know My Mind, written by Jimmy Skinner, and a trademark song of Tennessee-born artist Jimmy Martin, paired with a Czech text with a different meaning, but phonetic resemblance. In an informal jam at his house in spring 2019, mandolinist Tomáš Alexa explained that the repeated final line of the verses is where the resemblance is strongest. Here, Baby You Don't Know My Mind Today is echoed by the corresponding line, Nejmín na Roman má to děj. Brandeis identifies texts that diverge in meaning from corresponding English lyrics. Jeff Mack's I've Been Everywhere from 1959 originally listed places where the singer had been. Vyčital's version, performed with the Greenhorns, changed the meaning into a list of his favorite painters, himself being a painter, singers, himself being a singer, and tongue twisters, apparently himself having a huge problem with correct Czech pronunciation. Singer and literary translator Robert Křesťan has used his artistic sensibilities in transforming songs. He retexted the Anglo-American folk ballad Fair and Tender Ladies as Pět prázdných slunci, conveying a similar bleak emotional resonance, but with a male first-person regret instead of the female narrator of the American version. I've often heard from Czech bluegrassers that Czech language lyrics by Prague-based mandolinist, singer, and bandleader Petr Kus feel or sound more American, and that they're more idiomatically bluegrass than those by other Czech lyricists. Brandeis offers a rationale proposing that, especially in songs written on his own music, Petr Kus's writing style might be based on favoring some long vowels that make the text easier to sing, but not necessarily easier to understand. As a singer who's worked to perform Czech bluegrass texts, I present as an example Zlatá rybka. Here, Kus's original text and music, they feel intuitive to me as a native speaker of American English, for me to sing. Returning to the discussion of texts that imitate the sound of other texts, I note that Pod střechou vykryš mám was written by Petr Kus, indicating again his ability to create Czech lyrics that even sound like English. I also note that in addition to the sonic similarities, there are commonalities in the meanings of texts. And while the texts of both songs here speak to loneliness and alienation, there are differences in how these emotions are manifested. The narrator in Pod střechou vykryš mám is isolated by a static position, peering down on the action of the world from their dormer under the roof, in contrast to the mobility of the other song, in which the narrator self-identifies as a drifter, a rambler, a hobo, and a tramp, whose quote, heard the music of a rail and slept in every old dirty jail. Retexting Bluegrass can also involve reconfiguring it as a way to address the emotional, social, and aesthetic needs of a performer or a community. These days, there's a particular meaning to some of the terms I've used thus far. For example, for jazz players and scholars, contrafact is a specific kind of borrowing, using a previously composed chord progression as the chassis for a new melody, with no particular idea that any sort of text is even involved at all. The sorts of retexting I've documented through my work with Czech bluegrassers has its own community-specific relevances. My analysis of Czech bluegrass retexting processes has opened my eyes to the different and specific utilities of these tools of transformation, particularly with regard to the intent involved. I've used these tools in my own artistic and pedagogical work, and here are some examples and explanations of the intent that they accomplish. My wife and I set the text to the song Old Home Place to How Can I Keep From Singing, which is an older American hymn. We found a more plaintive tune that seemed to us to better match the emotional resonance of the text. The story of my setting of Gde Domov Mui, the text, to the tune of the Indonesian song Sapu Lidi comes out of my stay in the Czech Republic in 2018-2019. I wanted to work on this Indonesian song with my global string band class at Charles University, but I wasn't able to recruit singers to sing the Indonesian language text. So I was sitting on the train one day trying to find a text that would work, and Gde Domov Mui occurred to me. And interestingly, I had recently heard of the film Letters to Prague, which dramatizes the experience of an Indonesian man living in Prague, and this complicated history of Sukarno and Suharto and regime change in Indonesia. Inquiring in Czech about the location of home to an Indonesian melody became a way to ask questions about origin and belonging that are central to country music. Singing the text of the Anglo-American ballad Handsome Molly in combination with the Mexican Son Jarocho song El Balahu was also originally a matter of practicality when our group couldn't find singers of Spanish in Prague. Here in Tennessee, there is, however, a rich community of Spanish-speaking people, but we decided because of that it might be interesting to join an Anglo-American ballad with these Mexican musical traditions, seeking to open new avenues for understanding and connection between different communities. Machine identification of musical material is used to enforce intellectual property rules and to facilitate the flow of economic capital to copyright holders. Understanding musical materials as subject to recreation through retextings sometimes can subvert this process, as not all interpretations of a copyrighted song will be detected by the monitoring systems. While of course artists should be paid for their labor, it also seems important that we keep adapting musical works to our own local communities in ways that transcend the profit machine of the music industry. My work with Czech bluegrassers had shown that this sort of transformation can lead to artistic, social, and economic flourishing, So I say, keep on retexting.